NASCAR has reportedly paid millions of dollars to 20 Racing and Farmer Motorsports in the settlement, and the IHRA has acquired Rockingham Speedway. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports story discusser today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into really quickly. We're going to start by talking about Scott Dixon, as it was reported a couple days ago that Scott Dixon has officially been awarded knighthood in New Zealand. Getting knighthood in New Zealand and getting knighthood in a country is one of the biggest honors that you can have. It shows you're one of the biggest individuals in your country, and anyone who earns that has done an incredible achievement. So congratulations, Scott Dixon, on being awarded knighthood in New Zealand. A fantastic and incredible accomplishment for him, and I think it's amazing to see that Scott Dixon has been awarded that. Again, congratulations to him on being awarded knighthood in New Zealand. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Team Penske. As earlier today, on the first day of January, Team Penske and Roger Penske wrote a letter out to people in the Team Penske group. And he basically wrote a letter talking about the 60th anniversary of Penske. This upcoming season in 2025 will be the 26th, I should say, will be the 60th anniversary of the organization that's been around for many, many years, winning a lot of championships, over 20 Indianapolis 500s, multiple NASCAR Cup Series championships, multiple IMSA championships. I believe has won the Le Mans 24 Hours as well, and has done a lot of incredible things, and they're expected to continue that tradition for many, many years to come. It's incredible to see what Team Penske has been able to do and accomplish. Congratulations to Penske on a ton of success, and I think it's a fantastic and great letter that Roger Penske ended up writing. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're unfortunately taking this episode to a sour note. As it was sadly announced earlier this evening that Michael Printup has sadly passed away at the age of 6 years old. Michael Printup, for those who don't know, was the COO of Watkins Glen International Speedway. Also, I believe, was the president of Watkins Glen at one point as well, and has worked with a lot of sports car magazines over the years. Many in the industry have sent their condolences out to Michael Printup. I didn't know him personally, but my thoughts and condolences do go out to the Printup family currently at the moment. There's just been so much unfortunate tragedy that's happened in the motorsports world over the course of the last couple of weeks, from Denny Hamlin's father to Greg Biffle, among others in the industry. My thoughts and condolences do go out to the Printup family, and my prayers go out to the Printup family. Michael Printup was only 6 years old at the unfortunate time. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Mark Garrow. As it looks like, according to posts that Mark Garrow put out a couple days ago, it looks like that Mark Garrow, after being with PRN for many years, he's officially retired from PRN effective immediately. Mark Garrow has done, I believe, over 1,000 episodes on the Performance Racing Network and has been calling races for many, many years. But Mark Garrow has been around, I think, for over 40 years at this point. And I think Mark Garrow has been a fixture of this industry for many, many years. Congratulations on an incredible career in the PRN world. Congratulations on doing all this stuff that he's done on radio. He's helped call some races for Fox for many, many years. If he is truly retired, it's a sad day for the sport. That's another legend that is gone. But congratulations nonetheless on an incredible career with PRN. And thank you for everything you've done, Mark. You did an incredible and awesome job with the group. Congrats on a fantastic and incredible career with that group and organization, FPRN. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about the fastest to 10 wins. As was reported, I believe, by the NASCAR Insights account a couple nights ago, they put out a little bit of a documentation showing the fastest to reach 10 wins in the NASCAR Cup Series. Currently, at the moment, Tony Stewart holds that record with 79 wins in 79 starts when he got his 10th career NASCAR Cup Series win. The next ones up are Ryan Newman and Jimmy Johnson. Both, I believe, got their 10th win before their 100th starts. Then, of course, he had other drivers on the list like Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, among other things. Why do I mention this? Well, there's one driver who could potentially break that record, and that is Shane Van Gisbergen. I believe Shane Van Gisbergen has made less than 50 or 60 starts in the NASCAR Cup Series, and if he gets 4 or 5 more wins in the Cup Series, he will be able to reach 10 wins. If he's able to accomplish that, I think that is going to be phenomenal and absolutely incredible. And I think it'd be amazing to see him do that in 2026 with a lot of road courses on the schedule this upcoming year. I think he's got a really strong chance and a really good opportunity to break that record. So I think he's going to be one to watch out for in 2026, and I think there's a good chance and possibly he could break that record and score 10 career wins. I think it's a good chance he will do that in the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series year and NASCAR Cup Series season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Matt Weber. As it was announced earlier this evening that Matt Weber will be the crew chief for Jeremy Clements in the NASCAR Rally Auto Parts Series in 2026. Matt Weber, I believe, has been an engineer for the Jeremy Clements racing team for the last couple of years, but he's never had any crew chiefing experience before. We've seen this a lot more nowadays where a lot of engineers get the chance and opportunity to be crew chiefs in the sport. And Matt Weber is no exception. I think he's well respected in the industry by a lot of people. The first time I've ever heard of him, but I do think Matt Weber hopefully can do a really good job for the Jeremy Clements racing team. This is an organization that I think had a lot of potential with Case Callan back in the last year. Of course, he's not the crew chief of the team anymore. I really hope that Matt Weber can come in here, show some really good stuff in 2026 with this team, and lead Jeremy Clements Racing to having a ton of success. We'll see if he can have a strong run with Jeremy Clements in the 2026 NASCAR Rally Auto Parts Series season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mike Seneca. As it was reported by Declan Wayman earlier this afternoon that Mike Seneca is expected to return to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series in 2026. According to what's been reported, he's expected to make 2 starts in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, both of them at road course, the first one being at St. Petersburg for the first time when the Truck Series goes there, and then he's expected to run at San Diego as well. Now, Mike Seneca is one of those interesting drivers. Sometimes he does say and he has intentions to make starts with teams and organizations, but what's interesting here is we don't know what team and organization he's going to end up driving for. My best guess is FDNY Racing. Maybe if they show up, he might be the driver behind the wheel, but I'm not sure at the moment right now. I'm very interested and intrigued, though, to see if he will come out because, again, I've talked about this before, but sometimes people say they have intentions to race and then they don't end up racing. So we'll see if Mike Seneca does show up, but if he does show up, I think that'll be a really fun story to watch. We'll see if he does actually go ahead and show up and return and make a few starts, but nothing's officially confirmed on that point if he will be racing in 2026 at this time officially. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the high limit race at Perth. As it was basically over the last couple of days, we kind of talked about this on the channel, but the high limit series for the last couple of years has been doing these exhibition events in Perth in Australia. And Kyle Larson, who's had some solid runs in the first 2 nights, was able on Tuesday to put up a dominant clinic. He had some hard chargers from Australia, also had a hard charge from Corey Day in the race who was coming up the challenge for the win, but Corey Day had a flat tire near the end of the event. Kyle Larson held up the hard charging field, and he would come off the final corner and pick up the win in victory and score $100,000 and win the high limit race at Perth. I believe last year Kyle Larson won the race as well, so this is the second year in a row that Kyle Larson has won the high limit race at Perth. That is incredible for Kyle Larson. Obviously, he's been hit or miss at this event, but this could be a really good momentum and confidence booster for Kyle Larson going into 2026, considering Kyle Larson is still looking for his first Cup Series win since he won the race at Kansas in 2025. Winning a race like this will give him that chance and opportunity to get that momentum. I think Larson could be a factor and strong contender 2026 in Cup. Nonetheless, congratulations Larson on winning the high limit race at Perth. A well-earned and well-deserved victory for him. To see him go out and win is incredible. Again, congratulations to him on winning the high limit race at Perth. Well-earned and well-deserved for Kyle Larson. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Greg Biffle. As it was reported by Bob Pockers a couple days before the end of the year that according to him, a gathering of remembrance will be on the morning of January 16th, I believe at a Bojangles Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is to honor not just Greg Biffle, but his family and the pilots and the other individuals who were on that plane. This is in remembrance of what happened, I believe, on December 18th or December 19th in Statesville, North Carolina, where there was an unfortunate plane crash that happened right before Christmas. We're still thinking about the Biffle family currently at the moment, but I'm really glad to see they're doing a gathering of remembrance. We've been expecting that something like this was going to happen, and now we know it's officially confirmed for January 16th. I expect many in the industry to show up to this event, and I think it will be a very interesting, and I think it's a great event they're doing. I think it's great to remember someone who was a legend, not just as a race car driver, but also a great individual and a great human being. It will be great to remember the great things Greg Biffle did, and we're still thinking about the Biffle family currently at this moment and currently at this time as well. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Now, we all know, of course, that O'Reilly Auto Parts will be the title for the secondary series going into 2026. And earlier today, they have begun doing a lot of transitions. I believe the Twitter and the X page have officially changed their title slogan from the Xfinity Series to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series for next year. And their new slogan going into 2026 is going to be called the Proving Ground. I think it is certainly interesting, and to be honest, I actually do like the name they've got for next year. I think it's a really good way to be a proving ground to prove if you have the chance and opportunity to go racing in the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, obviously, there's some new changes and restrictions for next year where you're probably going to see a lot more Cup Series drivers in the field, guys like Kyle Busch, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Ross Chastain, who've already been announced for those two guys. Connor Zillage, probably Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott are going to show up. But you're going to see some guys have a chance and opportunity to prove themselves. Guys like Jesse Love, for example, who won the championship, Austin Hill, others in the field like Carson Quaffle, Raja Karuf, Harrison Burton, you name it, drivers SBS Racing, all the good stuff. I think it's a really interesting name that they've got going for 2026. I do like the name somewhat, to be honest, and I do think the Proving Ground is a very interesting but also a really cool name that they're going to be using for next year. I like it. I think it's definitely a solid name for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series going into next year, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Corey Heim. Now, a couple of nights ago, Taylor Reimer, who is the girlfriend of Corey Heim, she put out a tweet basically talking about the fact that it seems like she is interested in wanting to do the Tulsa Shootout once again. But what she put out in the tweet also is that Corey Heim seems like he also might be interested and could do the Tulsa Shootout in the near future as well. Now, Corey Heim's plans for 2026 are still not confirmed at this point when it comes to NASCAR, but I think it'd be really cool to see Corey Heim go do some dirt racing. I think seeing him and his girlfriend Taylor compete against each other in the Tulsa Shootout, especially in different classes, I think that'd be phenomenal. I think it'd also be really cool in the future as well if we get the chance and opportunity to maybe see her and him compete in the Chili Bowl Nationals. I believe she has competed in the Chili Bowl Nationals before, but Corey Heim has never competed in the Chili Bowl, and I think it'd be phenomenal to see more drivers on the NASCAR side come out. I mean, we've had other drivers who've expressed interest. Guys like Connor Zillage, for example, who wants to do it. Other drivers like Shane Van Gisbergen have expressed interest and also wanting to do the things like the Tulsa Shootout and other things. But of course, the Rolex 24 and other events have been a major factor to not happening at this point. I would love to see Corey Heim do it. Hopefully we'll find out his NASCAR plans in the near future. But I think it'd be cool to see Corey Heim have the chance and opportunity down the road to do the Tulsa Shootout. I think he'd have a solid chance and opportunity to be fast and competitive in the event if he got the chance and opportunity, especially maybe in 2027. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Tulsa Shootout once again. So currently at the moment, the Tulsa Shootout is going on, and we're in the final days of the Tulsa Shootout from 2025 to 2026. Tomorrow night is going to be the A mains, and all the major events and all the classes will have their A mains and B mains tomorrow night. And many notable names have been competing. Drivers like Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, and the kids of the drivers, Owen Larson, Brexton Busch, Braxton Flatt has been competing. Kaylee Lee Bryson, she's in the field. Ryan Timms is competing in the event. And a lot of these people have had the chance and opportunity to win some of their heat races. Last night, Ty Gibbs able to pick up the win. In fact, I think he actually won earlier today as well. Braxton Busch, he actually competed in a couple heat races. He's gone to victory lane multiple different times. He actually beat his dad last night head-to-head, where Braxton finished third, while Kyle Busch finished in fourth. And Owen Larson has also won a couple heat races at the Tulsa Shootout as well. I do not believe Kyle Larson has won yet, but his daughter also, Audrey Larson, she's been able to win a race or two so far up to this point. If you are in the top 112, you move on to the qualifiers. And if you don't make it to the top 16, you have to go to the B main, and all those drivers can be in those B main events. In general, I think Tulsa Shootout is always a fun event. We're probably going to talk about who wins each of the A mains once those races do officially complete very, very soon, which will be happening here on Saturday or the day after you guys watch this. I think it'll be very interesting to see how the racing is and if the race can be solid and really, really fun to watch for 2026 and going into the future. But I love the Tulsa Shootout, and it's been fun to see some of the big names who've had a chance and opportunity to be fast and really, really competitive this year. And I think it's going to be fun to watch more of those drivers continue the race into the future of the Tulsa Shootout for many, many years to come. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, Shane Van Gisbergen, I believe, was on a podcast not too long ago and was kind of discussing where the really good speed happened at the end of 2025, where they had a lot of speed on the oval tracks at the end of the 2025 season, where we saw Shane Van Gisbergen score a top 10 finish at Kansas Speedway in the end of the year. And we also saw him show some really good pace and really strong speed at other tracks like Las Vegas. He was pretty quick at Phoenix in the second half of the event before he spun out. And he said the reason why they got that pace and speed is because he had a lot of different setups in the cars at the end of the year. They were trying a lot of different setups after they got eliminated from the playoffs, and he says that's a big reason why they got the speed near the end of the year. You think about the progression of Shane Van Gisbergen. Of all the drivers in the past season that improved on ovals, I think he was the biggest improver when it came to oval racing in the 2025 year. And this gets me excited for 2026. I do think that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be a bigger factor on the ovals in 2026 than people give him credit for. I talked about this. I think that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be a consistent top 10 and top 15 threat. He's not just going to be a factor on the road courses where I think he's going to continue to dominate on those types of tracks in 2026. I think he's still going to be a factor when almost every single one of those is upcoming year. But I think that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be fast and incredibly strong at a lot of different types of tracks. I think he's going to be really good at tracks maybe like Iowa, for example, because he was fast at Kansas and he got a top 10 in the event. Remember, he had to start at the rear of the field and charge his way up to the front in that race. You think about Vegas, where he was in position to potentially score a top 10, only get taken out late in the race. I really believe that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to surprise a lot of people in a really big way in the upcoming season. And I'm excited to see what he can do with the Trackhouse Racing team. There's some big things happening with that program. They brought Tom Meredith in, which I think he's going to be a big asset to the program going into next year. And I just think it's exciting to see how this program could potentially perform in the 2026 year. It's going to be fun to see how things go for the program, and I'm looking forward to 2026 for Shane, because I think Shane this upcoming year, I think he's got a lot to prove. I think he's going to prove a lot of stuff in the upcoming year, and I'm definitely excited to see what Shane Van Gisbergen can do in the NASCAR Cup Series next year, and I think he'll win some races, and you never know, he might score an oval victory in the Cup Series in 2026. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Henderson Motorsports. As it was reported by Joseph Strigley yesterday afternoon that Henderson Motorsports spoke about their plans for 2026. And according to what Chris Carrier, who is a crew chief for the 75 truck, he says that they're currently on a holding pattern for 2026 at this point. They would like to run the opening race at Daytona International Speedway with Parker Clearman, but they're currently on a holding pattern at the moment right now, and I don't know if they're going to be running Daytona. They said they will need sponsorship to run in the 2026 season. Henderson Motorsports has been around for a very, very long time. They've been racing in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series for many, many years, and they also have competed in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series for many, many years as well. In fact, they technically won the race at Daytona last year, but unfortunately they got disqualified from the Craftsman Truck Series event at that track. I really hate to hear that they may not be running, but obviously there was the unfortunate passing of Charlie Henderson, I believe, in early 2025. And they really, basically since then, they've not been running as much. And there's been a lot of rumors this team, there has been some unknowns if they were going to show up in 2026 or not. I really would love to see Henderson Motorsports back in the Truck Series once again next year, because I do think this team has a lot to prove, and I think they've got a lot of potential to be extremely successful. I think that this team has shown some promise in trucks. They've picked up multiple wins. They won with Parker not just once but twice, and they've been super competitive and super fast, and Parker's been behind the wheel. And other drivers have been competitive when they've driven for the team. Sam Mayer was competitive when he drove for Henderson, and other drivers who've gotten the chance and opportunity to drive for the team and program have been fast and pretty competitive. So I really hope they show up, hopefully, because I don't know what's going on with the food country stuff, but I really hope they can find a sponsorship and funding so they can compete in races throughout the 2026 year. And I really hope they do get to run at Daytona, because I truly think they could be strong and show some good speed if they're able to show up. We'll see if they do show up next year, but I really hate that they may not be running next season, because I think they're a team that has so much potential to be strong and competitive. We'll see what happens on that front, and we'll see if, in fact, they do show up next year, because as of now, I'm not sure what the team's intentions are right now at this point, and I'm not sure if they'll be racing next year. I really hope they do get to race, though, in 2026. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about 2311 Racing. Now, earlier today, 2311 Racing put out a little bit of a tweet welcoming everybody to 2026 in the NASCAR Cup Series. And if they take a look at the tweet, it says, soon. What this tells me is there is a potential chance and possibility that 2311 Racing may be teasing an announcement for the 2026 NASCAR year. Now, obviously, of course, we do know they have their 3 full-time drivers set for the upcoming year. Bubba Wallace is back behind the wheel of the 23 car for 2311 Racing, who just put together a really strong year in the 2025 season, his best year, and got a win in the Brickyard 400. Then, of course, you have Tyler Reddick, who's driving the 45 car for the team in the upcoming year. And then, of course, you do have Riley Herbst, who is back in the 35. So what could this announcement be? I think there's certainly some possibilities. They could be announcing they're going to have a new sponsor for the program in 2026. But what I think it's going to be is them announcing Corey Heim making select starts with the team next year. Corey Heim has not officially confirmed anything at this point for the 2026 year. We do know he will likely not be back with Tricon Garage in the upcoming season. So more than likely, my guess is he's probably going to be announcing Corey Heim to make select Cup Series starts in a 4th car. The rumor is that they are going to be fielding a 4th car for the Daytona 500, and Corey is expected to make quite a few starts. And I think it'd be really cool down the road if he got the chance and opportunity to be full-time. One of my theories is that within the next year or so, we could see a guy like Corey Heim get a chance and opportunity to make a start or race full-time for the program. If Riley Herbst struggles this upcoming year, I think that could lead him getting that chance and opportunity to be with that program. So we'll see what happens in regards to the announcement for 2311 Racing. Again, at this point, I'm leaning toward them officially announcing that they are going to put Corey Heim in the car for select races. Maybe they get someone else behind a wheel like a Brent Cruz once he turns 18. Who knows at this point, but it looks like 2311 could be having an announcement in the future, and we'll see what that announcement is and what kind of stuff they work on for 2026 and what they end up doing on that front for the 2026 year, especially with the 4th car. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kevin Harvick. As I believe it was announced on Tuesday or Wednesday that Kevin Harvick will be returning to Rockingham Racing in late models in 2026 in the late model and the pro late models this upcoming year. He will drive the number 62 once again, and according to press release, it looks like he'll be racing either full-time or majority of the season in the 2026 year. Kevin Harvick, of course, is a part owner, I believe, of the Rockingham Racing team. They do have a partnership with Kevin Harvick Incorporated, which brought back their late model program. And we also know that Keelan Harvick is going to be racing with this program in 2026 as well in the number 62 or another number with the program. Kevin Harvick, obviously a legend in the NASCAR Cup Series, a future NASCAR Hall of Famer, will likely be eligible for the NASCAR Hall of Fame in the next year or so, and has had a ton of success and has been able to do a lot of great things in motorsports, including being a commentator for Fox. I think that Kevin Harvick will be very competitive. He's been pretty competitive in late models, though a lot of times when he competes against his son, Keelan, a lot of times Keelan ends up beating him. And we know Keelan is a fantastic and really, really good driver who's had a ton of success and has been able to do a lot of good things. And many people are very high on Keelan. Keelan is the youngest winner of the race that happened, the Snowflake 100. And there's a good chance he may see him the Snowball Derby as early as the end of the 2026 year. I think he'll be eligible once he turns 14 or 15 to run that event. I do truly think that Kevin is going to be competitive again with the Rockingham Racing team this upcoming season, and I think it'll be fun to watch and see what happens on that front. I would love to see him go out there and show some great things and be one of the guys that you have to be on a week-by-week basis. Who knows at this point? Nonetheless, a great opportunity for Kevin to return. We'll see if he can be fast, and we'll see if he can be strong and competitive with the Rockingham Racing team. I do truly think he'll be a factor, and I think he certainly will be a strong contender with this team and with this program in the 2026 year on the late model side and probably also on the Cars Tour side, as he'll be racing in the Cars Late Model Tour in the 2026 year as well. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Castrol. As there was reported by Adam Stern yesterday that Castrol has sold a 65% majority stake from BP of Castrol this month to an investment firm. But Castrol is still expected to remain a sponsor for RFK Racing in 2026. This is a really huge deal. Castro has been with the RFK racing team, I believe, even before Brad Keselowski came into the ownership group of the organization. They sponsored Ryan Newman, I believe, around 2020 to 2021. I think they even sponsored Newman around 2019 as well. They have been with this organization for the last 6 or 7 years. If Castro was to leave RFK Racing, that would be a massive and major loss for the program. Castro has been a major asset for the team. I think that they've won some races, and they've been competitive with their team drivers of Chris Buescher, and I think they even sponsor Ryan Preece in select races in 2025 as well, and I do expect they'll probably be back on the car for Ryan Preece in 2026. I think that them losing Castro will be huge. Obviously, there's been a lot of sponsorship turmoil happening in the sport. We've talked about it recently, but WeatherTech is no longer listed as a sponsor for Trackhouse Racing. We obviously know that Coke, Freeway Insurance are not back with the Trackhouse team. And there's another sponsor, if you've noticed it, is no longer on the website for the RFK team. The Experience stuff, the Net Lizette and the Next Laton are no longer sponsors with the team currently at the moment for 2026 right now. At least for 2025, they are going to be around, which is a good thing in a sense. But losing a company like Castrol, that would be a massive and major loss for the program because they had a ton of money. And a lot of times when you have these investment firms come in, especially when it comes to sponsorships, that could be very concerning because when you have ownership change and investment groups that come in, we saw this with FedEx, for example, when they left Joe Gibbs Racing, losing a sponsor like Castrol because they've lost Kings Hawaiian to Joe Gibbs Racing, that would be a massive and major loss for the program if Castrol does in fact end up leaving. I really hope that isn't the case, but I do have unfortunately a really bad feeling that they are gone, and that if that is true, that'd be very disappointing. So I really hope they don't go in the near future because I think it would be a massive loss for the motorsports world, and it would suck to see Castrol leave because I think Castrol is a solid and a really good company, and I've done a lot of great things for motorsports overall in the last few years as well with the RFK Racing team. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Denny Hamlin. Now, we talked about the story on the channel last night before the end of the year, but Denny Hamlin has finally released a statement in regards to what happened. So, unfortunately, a couple of nights ago, it was sadly confirmed that Denny Hamlin's father, Dennis Hamlin, sadly passed away in a fire that took place a couple of nights before the end of the year. He unfortunately inhaled a bunch of smoke. He and his mother, Mary Lou Hamlin, were unfortunately hurt in the fire that took place, and they both went to the hospital. Now, there is at least a little bit of encouragement in regards to his mother, Mary Lou. Denny Hamlin did say that she is doing a lot better and she's beginning to heal, and that recovery process is happening at this point. He did say he appreciates everybody's support and thanks everyone for the support and hopes that everyone can respect his privacy during this time. I really feel bad for the Hamlin family, and I certainly feel terrible for Denny Hamlin because Denny Hamlin has been through a lot as a race car driver. Talked about this when I did a video on this story. Denny's father, basically helped Denny Hamlin get the chance and opportunity to race in the sport. They sacrifice a lot and sacrifice everything to give Denny the chance and opportunity. I've gone back and watched a Bud Shootout from 2006 recently, and I can't imagine what Denny Hamlin is going through at this point. And it's unfortunately another sad thing when it comes to a chapter of unfortunate tragedies that have happened in the sport. Earlier this year with the Michael Annett passing in December. Then, of course, the unfortunate tragedy of Greg Biffle and his family in that plane crash. And then he had this unfortunate news. Going into this year, I really hope things can be better for this industry. But it's just sad to see this news, and I feel terrible for Denny. Obviously, we've talked about his father. Denny wanted his father to see him win a Cup Series championship and came very close to winning the championship at the end of 2025. He was so close, 4 laps away from getting it done, and then William Byron with 300 or so to go had that flat tire near the end of the event. I just feel so bad for Denny, and I feel horrible for his family. We're thinking about the Hamlin family currently at the moment right now. And the most important thing is I always tell people, hug your loved ones in these situations. Make sure to take care of everybody the best you can. And again, we're still sending our thoughts and condolences out to the Hamlin family currently at the moment. A good encouragement, though, on his mother. We're still thinking about the Hamlin family, and we're thinking about them currently at the moment. We're hoping a speedy recovery can happen so that things can be in a better direction and things can be in a better place for the Hamlin family. We're still thinking about the Hamlin family currently at this moment during a very unfortunate and sad and tragic time for Denny Hamlin. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about potential new manufacturers in the sport. Now, on Wednesday, I believe it was the 30th, Kelly Crandall actually wrote an article a couple days ago and talked about it was part of the Racer article they do every single week, and it's a newsletter they do every single week. Now, she talked about, and someone asked a question about what potential new manufacturers could be coming into NASCAR in the future. And she mentions two manufacturers that might be coming to NASCAR down the road. One of those, which would not be shocking or surprising, is Dodge. We have heard a lot of rumors and speculation that Dodge will likely be back in the NASCAR Cup Series in the next couple of years. It seems like we could see them in the NASCAR Cup Series as early as the upcoming year, which is 2027. Obviously, they are expected to have some sponsorship with the Kaulig and the Ram program, and we do think the Ram will sponsor the Kaulig Cup Series program throughout 2026. And I think you're going to see some of that sponsorship and some of the stuff associated with Dana White as well. Dodge has not been in the NASCAR Cup Series since 2012, so if they were to join the Cup Series in 2027, that would be the 15 years since the last time they were in the sport, which of course during 2012, they were able to go out and win the championship during that time. And I think it'd be really awesome if they got that chance and opportunity to win the championship at that point. But then we talk about Honda. Obviously, Honda, has been a lot of talk about that manufacturer. There's a lot of unknown if they're going to stay in IndyCar after 2026 at this point, because right now they're in a contract year with IndyCar, and many people in the IndyCar industry have been very skeptical and have been wondering also if they're going to stay in IndyCar after 2026. And they have to decide if they're going to stay in IndyCar or if they're going to go to NASCAR in the future, because that's one of the rumor things is they may come over to NASCAR if they leave IndyCar. If they're to leave IndyCar, that would be massively unfortunate and devastating to them, because that is a lot of money that they get, and they get a ton of manufacturer support as well. There's a lot of unknown and uncertainty around that front at this time. So I'm very interested to see if they will come in. Now, if Dodge comes in, there could be other teams that go over. People think Legacy Motor Club could switch over to Dodge if they come in. Obviously, that is certainly possible. There's been rumors that Jimmy could be doing some stuff with the Kaulig Ram program this upcoming season. And then, of course, you have other drivers who could try to make the move, like Kyle Busch, for example. And then, of course, there's rumors of Tony Stewart and Casey Kane coming back in the sport in select races in the Kaulig All-Star car, which I think is very much a certain possibility of something that's going to happen. And I think you're going to see some former champions get that chance and opportunity to be involved in the sport in some way, shape, or form going into 2026. I'm just certainly interested to see where things kind of go at this point in regards to that with the manufacturer side of things, because we keep hearing, oh, this manufacturer come in, or this other manufacturer might come in. Who knows at this time, but I do think there's certainly a possibility, and I think it'd be really awesome and really cool if we do see a new manufacturer in the sport, because I think a manufacturer like Honda coming in would be huge, and I think Dodge coming into Cup would be a huge deal. We'll see if that happens, and I really hope it does happen, because I think it'd be really awesome for the sport, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Dario Franchitti. As it was reported by Tony Donahue earlier this evening, it sounds like that Dario Franchitti may potentially be coming back to NASCAR in 2026. According to a report from Tony Donahue on his Patreon page that he does every single week, it sounds like that Dario Franchitti might potentially be doing the Truck Series race at St. Petersburg in 2026. According to a report, it sounds like it might be with a team like Tricon Garage, and it might be with Toyota in 2026. Obviously, we talked about Dario Franchitti. Recently, Dario is going to be running the Dubai 24 Hours, which will be the first time that Dario Franchitti has been involved in racing in some way, shape, or form since 2013. He had that unfortunate, ferocious crash that took place in 2013 during that season when he was driving for Chip Ganassi Racing at the Houston Street Course, which is one of the most unfortunate crashes we have seen in motorsports in IndyCar history as well. To see that he might be coming back and racing at a track like St. Pete would be incredible, to say the least. And it's already incredible itself to see that he'll be driving into Dubai. But you think about this. This will not be the first time Dario Franchitti will race in NASCAR if he does. He actually, I believe, made a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series start in 2007, I believe, for Chip Ganassi Racing. And then, of course, he had a short NASCAR career in 2007 and 2008. He made select starts in the NASCAR Rally Auto Parts Series in 2007 and 2008. At the time in 2007, it was the NASCAR Busch Series at that point. And then he drove the 40 car for Chip Ganassi Racing in the early portion of 2008 before unfortunately suffering an injury early in the year Talladega and never then coming back at that point. Then he went back to IndyCar and he had a ton of success and won the Indy 500 not once, not twice, but 3 times during the stretch of his IndyCar career. I think it'd be really cool to see this because there's been a lot of talk about potential crossovers that we could see it from IndyCar to NASCAR going into next year with that race, the same PC with the Phoenix race. Some have suggested we could see drivers like James Hinchcliffe come in. Others have suggested we could see others like, Scott McLaughlin, who my theories have been, especially with the rumors of Project 91 maybe coming back. I wouldn't be surprised or shocked if you see him in the Project 91 car for Trackhouse when we get to the race at Phoenix in a few weeks after that. But I think there is going to be more of that NASCAR and IndyCar crossover. I mean, some people suggested guys like Alex Palou getting a chance and opportunity to run the event. And I think it'd be pretty awesome if something like that could end up happening in 2026. Again, Tony Donahue, people have kind of not trusted his credibility at times, but I actually do trust his support quite a bit. I mean, the fact that he's been coming back to motorsports tells me there might be some truth to some of the rumors that are going on at this point on that front. And I think, again, it'd be really exciting to see Dario come in. I think it'd be really exciting to see a lot of different drivers get that chance and opportunity to race in different motorsports. It'd be really awesome to see Dario officially come back. So do I think is it happening? I think there's a good chance it might be happening next year, and or this year, I should say. God, we're in 2026. I think it'd be really cool if we could see something like that happen for the upcoming year. We'll see if it does, in fact, end up happening. We'll see if Dario comes in, because obviously there's a lot of really good drivers racing in trucks, guys like Christian Eckes. Some have suggested even Robbie Gordon coming in, or Tony could run the races, St. Pete in the Call cars. Who knows at this point? But I think Dario Franchitti coming back would be awesome, and I think it'd be an amazing story if it could happen in 2026 this year. We'll see if he does, in fact, end up racing the event at St. Pete, and if it does end up happening, we'll cover the story on the channel, because it'd be a major deal if he was to come back and race in NASCAR and motorsports in general, in my opinion. Now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Mark Martin. Now, we have talked a lot about Mark Martin on the channel over the course of the last year or so, because Mark Martin has been one of the individuals and drivers in the industry who have been very much open to having a full season championship for 2026. And on the most recent podcast that Mark Martin officially started for 2026, he and his co-host, which is his son Matthew Martin, kind of spoke about that. And basically, according to what Mark Martin said on the podcast, he was screaming for full season points. He was like a battering ram who was really, really pushing for that. And Mark actually said he was really excited to find out there were a lot of people who were really interested also, and was excited to hear that full season points was the thing that was still potentially on the table for the 2026 NASCAR season. Mark Martin has been one of the biggest opponents when it comes to having a full season championship. And I think many in the industry, including myself, have been very open, have really wanted to go toward a full season championship. It is worth noting when he spoke to Kenny Walls, he said he would actually be a little bit more open to having the 10-race chase, the original 10-race chase we had in 2004, but he said that'd be the farthest at this point to go. I think a full season championship, personally, should be the way to go. Now, NASCAR will be having a decision by the end of the month on what championship format they are going to have for 2026. Last year, they announced a lot of the competition stuff around my birthday, which was like January 10th, January 11th, I'm pretty sure. So we could potentially, as early in the next couple of weeks or so, have a decision made when it comes to the championship format. But I think it'll probably be a little bit closer to when the Clash happens, which I believe is the first week of February, is probably when they're likely going to have a decision on the championship. And from the last things we've heard, NASCAR still isn't entirely sure what they're going to be doing for 2026 at this point. It's come down to 3 different types. There's been this 3-3-4 format they've talked about. They've, of course, talked about the 10-race chase, which a lot of people are leaning toward. That's probably the direction they think that's going to go for 2026, and then the full season format. I think the full season format is the best way to declare champion. Are there going to be flaws? Yes, if you go that direction. Are there going to be times where someone is going to pull away? Absolutely. But I think a lot of NASCAR fans want the legitimacy to come back in the sport. And will you have more legitimacy if you have a 10-race chase than if you let's say, have the format we had in 2025? Yes, I think it's more legitimate because you have a bigger sample size at that point. But I think for me, full season should be the way to go when it comes to crowning the championship. I think it would be the best way, because I think that you would solve one of the biggest issues that we've seen in NASCAR. eliminations, cutoffs. Eliminations have caused a lot of race manipulation, and race manipulation has been a major talk about. We saw that at the Charlotte Roval, where I believe it was Ross Chastain who ran into, I believe it was Joey Logano on the last lap of the event, and Logano wasn't angry about it, but he basically wrecked Denny Hamlin, I'm pretty sure, and wrecked other people as well in that situation. It was one of the most heavily criticized things. We weren't talking about the fact that Shane Van Gisbergen won another road course race and dominated. We were talking about a thing that didn't need to happen and focusing on 15th and 20th place, which is something we shouldn't be focusing on. We should be focusing on the most important things, which is the racing product. If the racing product is good, people are going to tune in. And I think that's one thing NASCAR needs is legitimacy. And you'll get some of those old school fan base. I'm not too naive to think that you're not going to have all the fans come back. I know we're not going to get 10 million people overnight. In fact, even if we have a different format, we're never probably going to get back to that 10 million range. But I think when it comes to legitimacy and your old school fans being happy, you have a lot of fans that are happy if you go full season. Now, if you go back to the chase, I think it's a decent middle ground, but the 3-3-4, absolutely not. We saw that situation in Supercars, and Brock Feeney, who should have won the championship, lost the championship despite the fact he had a season similar to Connor Zilisch and Corey Heim in NASCAR and didn't win the championship. And many people have been very proponent on going toward full season. So I truly hope we go back to full season in 2026. I don't think it's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong that we go that direction. But as of now, I don't think it'll be the case. I think it'll likely be something similar to what we've had for a while. And I think it would be a bad decision to go toward 3-3-4. But I've got a bad feeling we're going to go that direction. If they go that direction, I'm probably going to be a little bit upset and a little angry about that situation there. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Rockingham and the IHRA. As it was announced yesterday, right before the beginning of the year, that the IHRA, the International Hot Rod Association, has officially acquired Rockingham Speedway and has bought Rockingham Speedway. And according to an article that was reported by Matt Weaver, I'm pretty sure yesterday, it sounds like that they intend to build the track up and build the track up into something special and really huge going forward into the future. Obviously, the original owners of the track are the people that had owned the track recently after the very big success of Rockingham Speedway. They had sold off the track, and we've been wondering who was going to be buying up the track going forward. The individual who's been buying up a lot of these tracks, this individual is buying up a lot of different tracks as of recently. He bought up Memphis Motorsports Park not too long ago, Memphis International Raceway, which did host races for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series back in the 90s and the 2000s. Same with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series as well. We also has recently bought the Maple Grove Raceway, which I think was a day or two prior, and Heartland Raceway Park in Kansas. We actually did host some Truck Series races back a little bit ago. He actually did also buy that track as well. This is really huge for Rockingham. Now, could this mean the future Rockingham when NASCAR is a little uncertain? I think the fact that he's bought up the track and intends to keep racing the most important thing, I think that this actually is a really good thing for the future of Rockingham Speedway. We've talked about this before, but I think there's a lot of people who would love to see a NASCAR Cup Series race at that track. One of my theories has been down the road is that the All-Star race in the future ends up going to that track, especially so you can test the waters of getting Cup cars there. It would make a lot of sense. You could have a throwback style race at the track in an old school feel as well. We saw the success of both the O'Reilly and Craftsman Truck Series races that took place in 2025. I think both races at the track for a track that had just gotten freshly repaved like a year or so prior, because a lot of times when you have these freshly repaved tracks, the racing isn't very good. I think the racing itself was really strong and really solid this year, and you saw some fantastic and really good races at that facility. And I think the racing itself at Rockingham had felt like an old school race. It felt old school. He had some field mileage aspects that came with the track as well. So I think it'd be really awesome and cool to see this track continue on for many years to come, because it's unknown at this point right now what the plans are for the track after 2025 at this point, which I do think more than likely Rockingham could end up sticking around. But this is also big news for that rumored IHRA stock car series. He's basically, I think it's like a $2 million purse, I'm pretty sure, and a lot of these tracks have been being bought up. The Memphis Motorsports Park, other tracks like the Maple Grove Raceway, Heartland, Rockingham are all also expected to host some races in the near future. But this keeps Rockingham on the motorsport schedule down the road because, again, I've mentioned this before, but we need to keep some of these local tracks out there. And people, we talked about this, if you want to see a track stick around on the schedule long term, you got to show up to that facility and show up to the track. And the fans came out to the race at Rockingham. They sold out for both races, and the grandstands are back. I think the Arca East race that happened there, the one that Brent Cruz won, I'm pretty sure, that race was completely sold out, and a lot of people ended up showing up to the track. And I think that is something that is so important with a lot of these tracks, is you got to show up. When North Wilkesboro came back on the schedule, people said you have to show up. People showed up for the truck race and the Cup Series race that happened there. And now for the first time since 1996, there will actually be a points-paying race, and it's going to be a night race at the track. It's going to be a 450-lap race, the longest race in the track's history, which is going to be really exciting for that. And I think down the road, with Rockingham being acquired, I do truly believe that you are going to see some Cup Series races happen there. I just feel so confident on that front right now, because I do think that Rockingham has a much better future and a clear future. Because if a company like the IHRA had not come in with the $1 million they had, or the group over there that owns it didn't come in and buy it, I think that this track would not have existed after 26 or 2027. There's been revivals over the years to keep this track around. Obviously, the Truck Series ran in 2012 and 2013, and unfortunately, there was a loss of interest at that time. And until 2025, nobody showed up. But now the track is in a very solid and really, really good state. And I think it's just so exciting to see that this track may have a really good future down the road. There's things they have to do to get the track in the best position. There's still work to do at Rockingham Speedway to get the track in maybe the best position it could ever end up being in. But I think it's really amazing and really awesome news here that this track will be on the schedule more than likely for many, many years to come. And to see the track has been acquired by the IHRA, who's been making some big moves on the short track side of things, I think it's amazing to see that this track will be on the schedule next year. I think it's awesome. I think it's an amazing news to hear. And again, it is just going to be good to see the track on the calendar for a long time. And I think it'll hopefully put on some really solid and really good racing next year. And we get some phenomenal and great racing at the track in 2026. Because more good tracks we can have on there, the better it's going to be. And I hope the racing can be good for the foreseeable future and many years to come at the track. I know there was controversy with Jesse Love getting disqualified, but the race was good. And I think both races were really fun at that track, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about the 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit once again. Now, a couple nights ago, I talked about the breaking news side of this things. And Adam Stern reported, I believe, was back on December 30th or December 29th, that apparently, according to him and him speaking to experts, according to what some said in the article, some executives and people in the industry and people who report on this stuff, they say that NASCAR likely paid millions of dollars in damages to get 2311 Racing and Front Row to end their trial, according to experts. But it gives the sanctioning body certainty and doesn't let it go to a judge where the judge can make a decision on that front. Obviously, we know that NASCAR and 2311 and Front Row settled. We didn't know the number exactly how much they paid, but according to article, we talked about this on the channel, I think they paid somewhere but maybe 10 to 15% of the money. They were asking, I think, for something like $365 to $370 million from the reports. It sounds like NASCAR maybe paid even up to 20%. If they paid 20% of that revenue, I think it's like $70 or $80 million, I'm pretty sure they would have ended up paying. If it was 10%, it'd be about $36.5 million. But also, of course, the teams and the side with Michael Jordan, they got pretty much a lot of stuff that they wanted. They got evergreen charters, aka permanent charters. They also got the charters back for the 2026 season as well. And all these teams have permanent charters going into the year, which a lot of people are saying, well, what's a good thing about permanent charters? It keeps stability in the sport. I completely understand there's a lot of people who are very skeptical on the permanent charter side of things and are not a big fan of the permanent charters. I completely understand that. And 10 or 15 years ago, almost 15 years ago when this whole thing was created, or 10 years ago at this point, I would have agreed with you. But this charter system is so important for a lot of these teams when it comes to money. I mean, basically what we've heard is the number of money that's basically for the investment side of things is going to go up. Some have already projected that money's gone up already double what it was. We've heard the numbers originally were 40 to 45 million. So if they've gone up double that from 45, that means they've gone up to over $90 million, which would be a massive investment. Some say it's probably gone up to like 70, 75 million, while others have said it's gone up to 90, 95 million. And investors are eventually going to be able to come in and invest in the sport, which I think that is really important in itself at this point. But it does give the sanctioning body the continuance, and because a lot of people think that a lot of things need to change. And I said this in the video originally when the news kind of got reported and came out. I do think there need to be changes in the sanctioning body. I've said this for a while. There needs to be a restructuring of how the sport is run, whether the sport is sold out to a different entity. Because I think you look at what happened with the situation with Richard Childress and Steve Phelps. Obviously, that was a situation where text came out, and there's been a lot of reports and rumors out there that down the road we could see Richard Childress potentially file legal action on defamation against Steve Phelps. I think that there's a chance that Richard could win that in court, but nothing's confirmed on that front. But you've got Johnny Morris, and a lot of people think that the Johnny Morris letter that came out, the scathing letter we talked about at the end of last year, many theorized that was a major, major factor why they did settle this case. And I think that definitely, without question, did play a role on that front for the situation with this lawsuit. Obviously, I think that a settlement here was a good thing, though, because I know some people are questioning it. And think about this. Imagine if the settlement had not happened. There's a very strong possibility that if a settlement had not happened in this case, many of your favorite tracks that are owned by NASCAR could definitely be in jeopardy. Tracks like Kansas Speedway, for example. Haven't talked about this much, but the Kansas City Chiefs, they're building their new stadium right outside of the Kansas Speedway, which is not that far away. And some of the land outside the track, they're building in that area. Tracks like Darlington could be in jeopardy if they had not settled. Tracks like Daytona, tracks like Darlington, Martinsville, for example. Other tracks that are owned by NASCAR could have been absolutely in jeopardy. So I think the settlement was the only way that this would have gone without the sport having a very uncertain future and a lot of owners being in a really difficult position if this had not been settled. So I think the settlement, while yes, a very controversial situation, a lot of people not agreeing with it, I think it really was the best thing. But I've said this before, there had to be changes with the ownership, and I really hope down the road someone can come in and make the sport the best place, because I do hope that we can start having some major, major changes, and I hope those changes happen soon, because we're right around the corner to 2026. Obviously, people are blaming the playoffs on NASCAR at this point, which I think the teams do play some part in that. I'm not entirely, actually, a lot of things like the practice, for example, seeing people actually blame the team NASCAR for that, which, by the way, the RTA is a big reason why basically we have less practice in NASCAR currently at the moment. Can't blame NASCAR on that situation. There's a lot of things you can blame NASCAR for, but I don't think this situation with the practice side of things is something you can entirely blame NASCAR for. I think the teams are to blame just as much as NASCAR is on that front and situation. I'm very interested to see what the actual numbers are in regards to the settlement, how much they paid. Again, the rumor right now, like I've already mentioned, is the fact that they paid around maybe $50 to $100 million. I wouldn't be shocked if it's higher than that, to be honest, because NASCAR wanted to get this settled. And I think the whole situation with the Rich Schultz NDA stuff also did play a part in a role, and a lot of people were really pushing for the settlement. So now we go to 2026 and try to figure out how to get the sport in the best position. But now we know what the numbers are likely coming from, and we know what the numbers likely were for the settlement for the 2011 Front Row and NASCAR lawsuit at this point, how much Michael Jordan probably had an influence in that at this time. So that's here today's long NASCAR news and motorsports news episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, does go live on my channel. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. How much do you truly think NASCAR paid in regards to the settlement to the teams? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about the IHRA acquiring Rockingham Speedway? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to be doing a preview for the 2026 season. On Sunday, I'm going to be having the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series driver, and I've talked a little bit about an early dive into that. Then Monday, we might have a NASCAR news video drop, but I might be also doing the paint scheme video as well. On Tuesday, if we don't do a news video, we'll probably do that news video on Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. And then, of course, we're going to have an early dive look at the truck lineup in the near future, and we should also be having some other content dropping as well. Around my birthday, which is about a week from now at this point, which is January 10th, I will probably be doing an extra predictions video for silly season for 27. There's some other big videos on the way as well. I might do some updated bold predictions for 2027, but not sure at this point. Also, an updated look at the Cup lineup for 26 in the near future. Got a lot of content coming up. People like Haley Deegan, Shaman Gisberg, and Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Sheldon Creed, Sam Ayer, Frankie Muniz, Clayton Safran, Dodge, Ram, Brad Keselowski, Gray Biffle, Denny Hamlin, other stuff like Condor Sills, Junior Motorsports, Daniel Suarez, Red Bull, Will Bryan, Brad Feeney, Cam Waters, Sam Ayer, Sheldon Creed, Eric Almirola, all the good stuff we'll talk about on the channel in the coming days and the coming weeks as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, buddy.